Catherine Conley.
Okay. Minister, my question relates to flooding defence works in Galway and the absence of any progress or urgent progress in relation to the matter, specifically the status of the review of the programme of the Cosaint flood relief scheme, the status of the revised programme. And I asked that because I was on the council and I left in 16 and the CFRAM works were coming to an end. A huge amount of work carried out by the Office of Public Works and hundreds of maps produced. But here we are, from 2012 this started. I left in 16 and here we are in 23 and it's revised and reviewed and no works. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And Deputy Connolly, Minister of State Patrick O'Donovan has asked me to answer his questions relating to the OPW this evening. In response to your question and previous questions with respect to the status of the Cosaint project, I'm happy to provide an update. As the Deputy is aware, major flood relief schemes involve complex engineering and construction operations that can impact on people's living, built and natural environment, and they therefore require lengthy planning and decision lead-in times. The process follows a number of stages from feasibility through procurement and public consultation to construction. It's important that the work is done correctly and that it achieves its objectives. Detailed technical analysis is required to establish the most appropriate solution, technically and environmentally, from a range of possible mitigation options. So, as previously stated, while not complete, early indications from the ongoing hydrological and hydraulic modelling for the scheme indicate that there may be a requirement to provide significantly more defences across the city than was originally anticipated through the Catchment Flood Risk Assessment and Management, the CFRAM programme that you referred to. Part of Stage 1, which is project appraisal for any flood relief scheme, is the review and update of design flow and water level data. On the Cosaint project, this review and update since completion of the Western CFRAM study has resulted in several years of additional flow and water level recordings being used, which together with detailed wave overtopping analysis has resulted in a potentially significant increase in flood risk to several areas of Galway City. This increase in flood risk is primarily due to higher tidal design levels and an increase in wave overtopping volumes, which has led to larger flood extents and a greater number of properties that are potentially affected. The process of confirming the scope, although it's time-consuming and complex, is an important part of the project and, as previously advised, will result in an impact on the scheme's programme. Also to note that though the programme will be extended, other aspects of the project are continuing to progress. It is expected that these additional flood relief works will be scoped and then agreed in the third quarter of this year between Galway City Council, the OPW and the scheme consultants, and that the revised project programme will then be made available and uploaded to the project website.
Thank you, Minister. And you've used the phrase a few times, as previously advised. Well, as previously advised, I was told it would be ready in the first quarter of this year. As previously advised in the next question in May, I was told it would be finished at the end of June. Now you've moved it on to another quarter. We're talking about 8 areas in Galway, and let me be parochial because it's my area. Nemo's Pier, Claddickey, Raven Place and Eglinton Canal, Wolftown Bridge, Merchants Quay, Long Walk and the New Dock, Sawtill Area 1 and Sawtill Area 2. Can I have some dates, please, and a sense of urgency? I realise the complexity of their works. I realise that Galway City is a particularly beautiful city, and architecture-wise and so on. There's the Eglinton Canal that was opened in 1852 at the time by Lord Eglinton. I spent 17 years of my life on the local authority. I know the work that went into this. My serious concern is the failure to make progress. It's just utter failure, and it keeps shifting. Like water spilling, the date keeps shifting and changing.
In relation to Deputy Connolly's question, which is when can we have some dates, the only date that I have available for you, Deputy Connolly, is that the scoping of the revised works should be agreed in the third quarter of 2023 between Galway City Council, OPW and scheme consultants. And if you have additional questions that you want to refer to me or to Minister O'Donovan, please go ahead.
I always lose the will to live at this point, Minister. There are 940 properties in the areas, the 8 areas. I'm specifically asking you, any more questions? What is the delay? The consultants were appointed back in 2020. We're into our 3rd year. They were building on the work done by the Office of Public Works, which began in 2012. I realise that it's a bigger job than they had imagined or planned for. I realise it's more complex. I realise all of that. But into our third year, after the consultants have been appointed, and with shifting times all of the time, Minister, I'm asking you, how can you stand over this? How can you stand over this happening in Galway City with the dangers that the flooding presents? I live in the Claddagh. I've seen it flooded. My own house was safe. Luckily, many people weren't as lucky. And that's happened numerous times. And I'm also concerned at this sentence that's put in, a 1 in 100-year event. We're out of all of that kind of talk now in relation to the catastrophic effects of climate change. And finally, I'm over time. In the arts, last year or the year before, they put up a visible display with lights of where the water would go in the Claddagh. So please, let me have a more urgent response.
Thank you. I'm advised, Deputy, that the project is delayed due to the review and update of the design flow and water level data. So this review, since completion of the Western Seafram study, resulted in several years of additional flow and water level recordings being used. And together with detailed wave overtopping analysis, this has resulted in a potentially significant increase in flood risk to several areas of Galway City. In other words, that the original project's scope was not broad enough and that the environment has changed in the period of time while it was being analysed. This increase in flood risk is primarily due to higher tidal design levels, increased wave overtopping, and this has led to larger flood extents and a greater number of properties that are potentially being affected. The consultant noted an increase in project scope on the 9th of December 2022, and at that time the hydrological and hydraulic analysis was still ongoing, and any redefinition in project scope would have been premature. There was also a number of iterations of modelling outputs, which the project team reviewed in detail, and it was important to ground truth these predictions, which is a time-consuming process. However, it is important to note that the progress of the project has not been affected to date by the redefinition of the project scope.
Thank you.